Hello again, guys. This is Tim from V7 Software Development, and welcome to tutorial number 2 for the Flat Rate Advisor program. Now, if you've already watched tutorial number 1, you have a general idea of the basic layout of the program. Now, Flat Rate Advisor comes preloaded with tens of thousands of parts and tasks, which can be combined to create books. Now, you already have everything you need within the program to create your own custom books, but I'm sure many of you would like to add your own parts, build some of your own custom tasks, and create custom books. So that's what we're going to show right here. Now, this flowchart is a basic overview of how that is done. So flat rate books are filled with tasks, and tasks are made up of parts as well as labor items. So you can see in the flowchart here, we begin with parts, we build tasks with those parts, and then we build a custom book with those tasks. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the program is loaded with many parts and tasks, but let's assume you want to create your own part, your own task, and then create a custom book using that part. So following the flowchart here, you would go to the Parts screen, you would create your part, save it, then you would go to the Build Tasks screen, you would build your tasks, then you would go to your Book screen and create your book. Now, of course, there are many other settings and customizations you're going to want to make here before creating your book, but that's just a quick overview of the workflow of creating a repair pricing book in Flat Rate Advisor. Now, later on in the series, we will get into creating your own books and parts and tasks from scratch, but for now, let's just assume we're going to use the preloaded data and create a book from that data. So the first thing we're going to do is go to the Edit Categories screen. And what we do here is select the categories that we want to include in our book. By default, all categories are selected. Now let's suppose we don't do boiler work. We go right here to boiler, double click it, and we'll see the in book column has changed to false. So that will not be included in the book. Another category we may not do is geothermal. We'll double click that, and that won't be included in the book. Now, another category you may want to think about including or excluding is the sheet metal category. And I say that because it's a large, very large category, and it will create many pages for your book. So if you don't do a lot of sheet metal, you may want to exclude that from your book. Now down here, if you'd like to reset, you could simply click Include All, and it will change everything back to true and include all categories in the book. Similarly, you can exclude all, and then you can go through and select just the few categories that you do want to include. Suppose you want a book that is strictly for air conditioning. We'll select that. And when we select a category, we can see down here the name of the category, how many tasks are in that category. We can also see the total number of categories that are in this grid. So I'm going to go back and include all, back to where we were, and deselect boiler and geothermal and sheet metal. So those three will not be included in our book, but the rest will. We will click Close. And now we're ready to create our book. Click on the Books button, and the book screen opens up. And the first time you open this up, you will see a demo book in here. That's basically just an example for those of you using the trial version. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. And come down here to Delete, Confirm, and there we go. Now we're ready to create our new book. We're just going to use all the default settings right now. We'll cover all those specifics a little later on. So to create our book, we simply click the New Book button right here. Enter a book name. I'm going to call it My Book Number 1. Continue. And again, it will show us the categories that are going to appear in that book. So everything looks good. Click Continue. You get a message, ready to make book. Click Start to begin. Now, depending on the size of your book, the categories you've encoded, it may take a few minutes to create this book. We'll go ahead and click Start. My book number 1, it has been saved in my books. We'll close that, and here is your book in the library. Now, to view your book, you can either double click it here, or you can click Print Book right down here. Confirm you want to look at my book number 1, click Continue, generating book view, and here we go. This is the book we just created, and these are all of the categories that are in the book. You can drill down, look at the subcategories within each category, or you can page through the book by the little navigation bar here at the top of the screen. To print your book, you would go to this little printer icon. To export your book to a file format, say to your desktop or to an external drive, this first icon on the top left is the export icon. Over here we have a little zoom button. If you'd like a closer look, you can zoom in and out and put it back to 100%. Sometimes the bottom of the page will be just down below the edge of the screen. You can scroll down and take a look at that. Now up here in the top right corner, you will have the date the book was printed, the book name, the page number. Now over here we have the company name. That's set in your company screen, as well as your subheading. That's an optional subheading. You can leave that blank if you wish. Moving on down, your category, your subcategory, your part, your flat rate repair code, and the repair ID. This is a system ID that has information coded in there for you, and we'll get into that later on. Now we can have up to 5 categories. In this one we have daytime, evening, holiday, senior discount, or a service policy price. Now you can set each column with a factor, daytime being your standard rate, evening perhaps you want to charge time and a half, you would set your factor there accordingly. Holiday, maybe you charge double time, you can set your factor there to double, and so on. So that's just a real quick look at creating a very basic book with no customization at all. So let's close up and go back to our main screen. Now let's do a little setup. First thing we want to do is set our labor rates and tax rates. Now at the top you'll see the column headings. The columns we saw in the book that we just created. Daytime, evening, holiday, senior, and policy. Now you can customize these and name them whatever you wish. Down below is the labor factor. As I said before, column 1, daytime, that's your standard labor rate, so that's going to be a rate of a factor of 1.0. If you're charging time and a half for evening, that is a 1.50. And again, you can change these to whatever you like. Coming over here to senior to do a discount, you can see we have a factor of 0.90. That effectively is giving the customer a 10% discount on that repair. And our policy customers are getting a 20% discount. Next, we have the show in book tick boxes. You can include or exclude any of these columns in the book. Suppose you don't want to show the senior discount column, just untick that, and you'll only see the 4 columns in the book. And next, we have an option that you can tick that will drop the cents from your repair pricing. Suppose you have a repair that's $247.11. Well, it will just round that down to $247. Next, we're going to move down to the labor taxes, the trip, and the diagnostic. Now, you're going to have to decide your labor rate per hour because that is how the program decides what to charge for these flat rate repairs. Even though it's flat rate, underneath it all, it's still based on time. Next, labor tax. Again, that's going to be decided by your state and your particular setup if you need to include tax on your labor at the time of sale. Next, you have the option of adding a trip charge into your flat rate repair. That way it's not itemized on the invoice, it's just all added into one single flat rate repair price. And you can also add diagnostic minutes into each repair. And these diagnostic minutes will be billed according to your labor rate per hour up here. And that will all be calculated and included into the single line flat rate repair price. And over here you do have the option to apply the tax to the labor. Apply the labor tax to trip and diagnostic if that's considered labor where you're operating. And also, if you'd like to apply the column factors to your trip and diagnostic, in other words, if you want to mark up your trip and diagnostic accordingly with your evening, holiday, and discount columns, you would tick this box right here. Moving over to the parts taxes. Again, this is going to depend on your state requirements. You can tax your parts based on your net cost, or based on your selling price, or do not charge tax. This would be for people who normally would pay tax to their distributor when they buy the parts and they do not include it in their customer's invoice. Back up here, you might notice this note here. Factors are applied to labor portion of repair only. Parts are passed through with their specified markups. What that means is these factors, let's say the time and a half, that is just taking your labor portion of the repair and multiplying it by time and a half and figuring that into your total selling price. Now your parts are marked up according to a parts schedule on another screen, and we'll get to that shortly. And that's it for tutorial number 2 on Flat Rate Advisor. We'll see you next time when we look at the parts markup screen. Until then, this is Tim from V7 Software Development.